there's all sorts of hyperbole tonight and just this fantastical, these hypotheticals they've made up. Future presidents are going to turn into assassins and all the rest.
I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
It's madness. Listen, remember this. The president and the vice president are the only two offices in our constitutional system that are elected by all the people. No one who is elected to that office is going to be prone to this kind of crazy criminal activity.
Mike Johnson doesn't want Americans to recognize that the Supreme Court just proved that it works for Donald Trump. I'm going to break down the plan to normalize it real quick on this watch list.
What the court is saying here follows common sense and, of course, our Constitution as well. You have to have the president with the ability to make difficult decisions hourly, daily, and not be worried about rogue prosecutors going after them at some point in the future. I mean, the president can't operate if he has that kind of sword of Damocles hanging over his head, and that's very simply what the court ruled today. It should have been 9-0. It was only 6-3, and the liberal justices are playing along with the charade. I really do think it's a scary thing for them to undermine the court itself.
Mike Johnson is still playing his role as the boring guy that says allowing Donald Trump to ignore the law before, during, and after his one term in office is normal. If you think this isn't right, Johnson's there to tell you that your eyes and ears are lying to you.
Kayleigh, what we're seeing tonight is despicable and it is dangerous. The president has been trying to undermine our legal system. First, they weaponized the Department of Justice to go after his chief political opponent, which of course is Donald Trump. And now, when it doesn't work the way they planned it, the way they designed it, when the law gets in the way of what they're trying to do, now he's trying to undermine the Supreme Court itself. It truly is an unprecedented moment in American history, and it's at a dangerous time.
Just because he has the delivery of a physics professor doesn't change the crazy statements that he's making. When talking about Trump, he said everyone should calm down over the immunity ruling because anyone elected to the presidency isn't going to be that prone to crazy criminal activity. This coming from Johnson's House of Republicans that have embarrassed themselves for a year and a half, baselessly claiming that Biden was involved in a bribery and influence peddling scheme with foreign countries and that he needs to be punished. No talk of immunity for Biden, though. As usual, the plan is to push wildly unfounded claims that their political enemies are criminals while Donald Trump loses criminal cases in court, only to be saved by the Supreme Court that he now controls.
So that could happen. I don't know that the public would stand it, you know. I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a
tried house arrest or
I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point there's a breaking point.
Just a former president again calling on his supporters to hit a breaking point if he receives punishment for his crimes. These are rulings that he literally acts like didn't happen, like the New York civil case that told him to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for lying about the value of his businesses.
In the middle of our conversation, Donald Trump received a phone call where he asked for a directed verdict and then tried to offer his own analysis of what was happening in New York while he was in Florida.
Let me give it a shot, okay? All right. So they just finished up the trial. We won everything. We have a judge who just doesn't want to let it go. He's crazy. I don't know if you're liberal or not, but this guy is a radical left lunatic.
Yeah, he's very liberal, and he's not a supporter of yours.
He's a political hack.
Yeah.
He's a real hack. When you look at him, he should have never had the case in the first place. He got it. A very dangerous system. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like very dangerous. The good news is we're killing him. He's getting horrible publicity.
Yeah, I saw that.
Horrible. This thing with his weightlifting and shit, he's crazy. He's a lunatic. Yeah. And he doesn't want to let it go.
So you see, in his mind, when he loses a case, he won the case. When he loses an election, he actually won it. And when a judge does their job, they should have never been there in the first place. If they're Latino, they're biased against him. If the prosecutors are black, they're racist against him. Nothing is ever his fault, regardless of the mountains of evidence, because he's convinced enough people that his claims outweigh the reality.
If I went back to NBC right now to do something, they would do anything I wanted to do. Show business I'm talking about. Doing a show, anything I wanted to do right now, 100%. Because one thing I know about that business, and I learned that business better than anybody else can learn a business in a short period of time, it's all about one thing, ratings. If you have ratings, you can be the meanest, most horrible human being in the world. There's only one thing that matters, ratings. You can be nice or you can be mean. You can be evil, you can be horrible, you can be crude or elegant. There's only one thing that matters, and that's ratings. If you don't have ratings, it doesn't matter.
Sounds familiar. When you're a celebrity, you can do whatever you want. But in this case, they grabbed his supporters by their brains and convinced them that his actions aren't his responsibility, that it's impossible for him to break the law. And when prosecutors present multiple cases that he has, it's dangerous for them to do their job.
It will, in my opinion, slow down Jack Smith's persecution and selective prosecution of President Trump. And I don't see how this case could go forward before the election. But again, I would say that there's still issues to be discussed, such as how Jack Smith even got into this position, how we allowed our democracy, how we allowed the republic to become one that targets political opponents. The fact that we've been in front of the Supreme Court so many times is frankly a sad day for the American people. It's election interference at its finest. But I'm happy today. I think that Chief Justice Roberts made a good decision for what I'm seeing of. Obviously, I need to read it fully, but recognizing Nixon v. Fitzgerald, upholding that decision and stating that absolute immunity does exist for presidents is a good thing. It's an important thing for all Americans, both Democrat and Republican.
Listen, if we don't recognize the coordination between this ruling from the Supreme Court and the excited way Trump's attorneys that can't win a case in court are clamoring for their losses to be thrown out, we're falling for the new standard that they're setting. When they feel that they have the highest court in their hands, even their fake slates of electors in their election interference scheme become alternate slates.
We believe that if the official conduct, the immune acts in the indictment are stripped away, that Jack Smith doesn't have a case, that this case should be dismissed on that basis. I don't think there's sufficient private conduct here to support the indictment, to support the ongoing prosecution. And that's what we're going to be litigating in front of the district court now.
Even just the false slates of electors, you don't think that would constitute enough for a trial?
Well, we would say alternate slates of electors.
Alternative facts to that.
And as we argued before the Supreme Court, alternate slates of electors have been a method used by previous presidents, most notably Ulysses S. Grant, to ensure the integrity of prior elections. So we believe the assembly of those alternate slates of electors was an official act of the presidency. That's what we argued before the Supreme Court.
Do not people remember what else they argued before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals just a few months ago? They argued that this immunity case that Trump's Supreme Court just co-signed should allow their guy to utilize the United States military to kill anyone he deems an enemy.
Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? That's an official act in order to SEAL Team 6?
He would have to be and would speedily be, impeached and convicted before the criminal prosecution.
What if he weren't? There would be no criminal prosecution, no criminal liability for that?
In the plain language of the impeachment judgment clause, all clearly presuppose that what the founders were concerned about was not...
I asked you a yes or no question. Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is
no. My answer is qualified yes.
You know, if your attorneys have to play with words and qualify their answers with hurdles that have already been eliminated from the equation of whether or not the former president can kill his political enemies, there's a good chance that they want the power to kill their political enemies without consequence. He can promise to suspend the Constitution for the right to declare himself the winner of an election that he lost. But as long as enough supporters don't know the gravity of what MAGA is proposing, they'll endorse a vision that they don't even know they support.
Would it be a deal breaker for you if someone said, for example, terminate the Constitution?
Absolutely.
Can I read you a message of Trump saying that on True Social? So here's him on True Social, and right there he says a massive fraud talking about his belief that the election was stolen. Of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution.
No, I don't agree with that.
So if that was a deal breaker, then why isn't that something that really makes you question supporting him?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, now you have started me questioning that. I mean, I haven't seen that. Okay. If that was from Donald Trump, President Trump, I'll look into that. As far as I was aware, he was all about the Constitution, family, God, guns, what our founding fathers strive to, principles to live by. So that's news to me. I hadn't seen that.